Hello, welcome today. This is a Friday, so we are going to look at people, place, and things, and specifically we're going to look at this unleavened bread, this feast, these instructions that God gave to Moses in Exodus chapter 13. And if time will permit, we will move from that on into more of chapter 13 with what we learn here from God in God's Word. Let me introduce myself. I know this may be the first time that you have joined us in this Facebook Bible study. My name is Lee Moats. I am the preacher at the Dexter Church of Christ in Dexter, Michigan. We meet on Sunday mornings at 9:30 for a Bible study period, and then at 10:30 for our worship period. And we would be thrilled and honored if you were in our area and could come and join with us at those times. We do have a midweek Bible study on Wednesday nights at 7 p.m. So if you can, if you're able, please come and join with us. Let's look in Exodus chapter 13. Let's start with verse 1. I know this is people, place, and things, and it's easy to say, hey, well, Lee, you talked about this in our last time together. Well, we're going to talk about, good morning, we're going to talk about we talked about the event, and sometimes it's hard to talk about an event without talking about the things that happened in the event, but we're going to speak more about some details that I think it's easy for us to overlook. I think it was easy for Israel to overlook, and we overlooked them also. I'm going to read from the English Standard, but I will give you some of the things that other translations have to say about what we're studying today. Exodus chapter 13, let's begin with verse 1. The Lord said to Moses, "Consecrate to me all the firstborn. Whatever is the first to open the womb among the people of Israel, both of man and of beast, is mine." That's pretty specific. The word consecrate here, he says consecrate. And if you look at it with some different translations, they will use, many of them use the word consecrate. Others will use the word dedicate. Now, what does it mean to consecrate something? What did that Hebrew word translated consecrate or dedicate mean? And it means something very simple. To consecrate is to take something that is used every day for common purposes or to serve a common purpose, and to move it from that common purpose to a holy or sacred person. It is very similar to the phrase set apart. Set apart. And the closest thing to it in the Greek that we would run into in the New Testament, very similar meaning word, is to sanctify, to make this holy. It was common, but now I want you to take and make this, in this case, holy. And so all firstborn, man or animal, and whatever's first to open the womb, to come from the womb, man or animal, is to be consecrated, to be made holy, set apart for me. And then he gives us some more details as we read on, starting in verse 3. Then Moses said to the people, because God said this to Moses now, right? And God has told Moses this, so Moses is going to relate this to the people of Israel. And he says, then Moses said to the people, remember this day in which you came out from Egypt, out of the house of slavery, for by a strong hand the Lord brought you out from this place. No leavened bread shall be eaten. Today in the month of, it says Abib, some say Aviv, You are going out. And when the Lord brings you into the land of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites, which he swore to your fathers to give you, a land flowing with milk and honey, you shall keep this service in this month. 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread, and on the seventh day there shall be a feast to the Lord. Unleavened bread shall be eaten for 7 days. No leavened bread shall be seen with you, and no leaven shall be seen with you in all your territory. You shall tell your son on that day, it is because of what the Lord did for me when I came out of Egypt. And it shall be to you as a sign on your head and as a memorial between your eyes, that the law of the Lord may be in your mouth. For with a strong hand the Lord has brought you out of Egypt. You shall therefore keep this statute at its appointed time from year to year. When the Lord brings you into the land of the Canaanites, as he swore to you and to your fathers, and shall give it to you, you shall set apart to the Lord all that first opens the womb. All the firstborn of your animals that are males shall be the Lord's. Every firstborn of a donkey you shall redeem with a lamb, or if you will not redeem it, you shall break its neck. Every firstborn of man among your sons you shall redeem. And when in time to come your son asks you, what does this mean? You shall say to him, by a strong hand the Lord brought us out of Egypt from the house of slavery. For when Pharaoh stubbornly refused to let us go, the Lord killed all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both the firstborn of man and the firstborn of animals. Therefore I sacrifice to the Lord all the males that first open the womb, but all the firstborn of my sons I redeem. It shall be as a mark on your hand, or frontlets between your eyes, for by a strong hand the Lord brought us out of Egypt. There's a lot there. God gave Moses instructions. Moses is now relating those instructions to the children of Israel. Now, they're to the children of Israel. They're also included in there that mixed multitude that decided to come and to serve God, because this Passover was to be kept by everyone that was willing to keep it. They had to be circumcised first. But no foreigner was allowed unless they first were circumcised. And so he says, remember this day. Remember this day in which you came out from Egypt, out of the house of slavery. God is giving him a specific day. Specifics. If in time going forward they decided they wanted to do something to honor their deliverance from Egypt, God didn't give them a choice as to when. They didn't get to pick it on their own. Instead, God gave them a specific day. He gave it through Moses. But there was a specific day, a specific month, and a specific day in the month. The month of Abib. And some translations will say, instead of B-I-B, A-B-I-B, they will say A-V-I-V. Because in the Hebrew, there's not a dot. There's not a dot in that letter. If there's a dot, it's a B sound. And if the dot is absent, it was a V sound. So you'll see it spelled both Abib and Aviv. And so in the month of Aviv, or Abib, on this specific day of that month, you are to do this. Okay? And he even tells them that, verse 10, you shall keep this statute at its appointed time, specific time, appointed time, from year to year. This included the Passover and the feast. We call it the Feast of Unleavened Bread. You'll hear it referred to as the Feast of Seder. Seder. And so he's telling them what to do. He's telling them when they're to do it. He didn't just leave it for them to randomly pick or to take a vote and decide. He is specifying when they are to do this. So they are to commemorate. They are to consecrate. They are to remember this day in which you came out from Egypt. And they were to do that at the appointed time from year to year. That's big, isn't it? God, we often think, well, God just doesn't care. Well, God does care about what we do. God even cares about when we do it. And he specified that under the law of Moses, that there was a specific time in which they were to do this Feast of Unleavened Bread. It accompanied the Passover, because when this Feast of Unleavened Bread would end, the Passover would take place. They were tied together. And sometimes when you read about one, it's talking about both. Many times, because they are really inseparable. Two different things, but they are so tied together that you really can't have one without the other. One only means something because of the other. So there are, for this Feast of Unleavened Bread, 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread. He specifies the time period. And then on the seventh day there will be a feast to the Lord. This, verse 7, unleavened bread shall be eaten for 7 days. No leavened bread shall be seen with you, and no leaven shall be seen with you in all your territory. Some of the translations will say leaven. Others will say yeast. And what exactly are we talking about here? There is more than just yeast that serves as a leavening agent. And leavening itself is a leaven, or yeast, if you want to use it that. There's honey that serves as a leavening agent also. And so there's limitations on what they are to do. And he makes it clear that for 7 days there's to be this. You might say, well, that's going to be hardship, just eating plain old bread. Hard bread that's not raised. But leaven will form a gas inside the bread, and it will separate the grains, the flour made from the grains. It's a corrupting agent. It's because of the fermentation. And so many times in the scripture, Old Testament and even in the New Testament, leaven is referred to in a bad way, a negative way, because it pushes things apart. It may taste good, and often it does. It may be easier to chew and to swallow, yes. Lighter and fluffier, yes. But God wants us to remember, and wanted them to remember, the hardship that they went through. They didn't have those luxuries, and they are to remove leaven, whatever leaven agent there is, from their homes. They are not to eat it during this time period. And they are also to teach. It sounds a little bit odd to us, and I think this has been taken wrongly. It has been taken wrongly. For example, in verse 9, it shall be to you as a sign on your hand and as a memorial between your eyes. What? This day, this feast period, this time frame, starting on a specific day, of the unleavened bread. It doesn't mean you tie something across the middle of your forehead. It doesn't mean that you tie something on your wrist. This day will be the memorial. This feast will serve as the memorial, the sign. Sometimes signs point to things that have taken place, right? If we're driving down the road, we'll see a sign ahead that may say a certain place or a certain thing is going to take place so many miles ahead. But sometimes there's signs that remind you of what you have left. You'll see a sign, "Thank you for visiting our city. Please come back." And there might be a phrase that town or city is known by, the City of Roses or something along that line. And so signs can be both pointing forward and some point backwards. And this is what he is talking about here. This memorial that I am giving you instructions concerning, it is to be a sign of what has happened in the past. As you go forward, don't forget what has transpired in the past. When you lift up your hand to do something, it's to be a sign to you of what has happened. When you look at something, you're to be reminded of what has happened and how God delivered you with a strong hand. And then he says that the law of the Lord may be in your mouth. Did you hear that? May be in your mouth. The New International Version of 2011 says, I say 2011 because it has been, the New International Version has been revised through the years also. This 2011 says that this law of the Lord is to be on your lips. The New Living Translation says, let it remind you always to recite this teaching of the Lord. And so as you commemorate, as you remember this, you are also to tell about it. It's to come out of your lips, out of your mouth, so you can tell and tell others. Your children are going to ask about it. He goes in and talks about it. Your children are going to talk about it. Verse 14, when your son, in time to come, your sons ask you, what does this mean? You tell them. You explain to them what God has done and how he brought you out. And what Pharaoh did, verse 15, and how the Lord killed all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both the firstborn of man and the firstborn of animals. And so there's a lot going on. This is to be a reminder, this unleavened bread, this Passover that you partake. You don't want to forget it. The Israelites today refer to this as the Feast of Seder. Seder means order, organized. They have a specific way in which they are to do everything. Not necessarily a way stipulated under the law of Moses, but a specific way. And that way is outlined. They have another book called the Haggadah, which tells them what prayers they are to offer, what stories they are to tell, what songs they are to sing, the specifics of the meal, how it is to be laid out and how they are to eat it, the Passover meal. More modern, that's the traditional way. There are some more modern ways in which it is adapted. Some will do it entirely in Hebrew. Some will do it in English, or a mix. Some will have really ancient songs and stories. Some will tell more modern songs, sing more modern songs, or tell more modern stories. Some may even use puppets to tell the story, hand puppets and things. So that's called the Feast of Seder because it's order. They have put that there's a specific way, an order you are to do everything. God doesn't give it that way here. We may see going forward there are going to be more specifics, but nothing really to that extreme in the scripture that as it is done today in many places. So there's this Feast of Unleavened Bread. We also find that they are to set apart, in verse 11. He says, this is to be done when they enter the land of Canaan, because they're going to be remembering that the Lord had swore this to them and to their fathers. And they are to set apart all that first opens the womb. This takes us back to verses 1 and 2, doesn't it? All the firstborn of your animals that are males shall be the Lord's. Every firstborn of a donkey, you shall redeem it with a lamb, or if you will not redeem it, you shall break its neck. Every firstborn of man among your sons you shall redeem. And so we find that why would they do this? Because of the firstborn that died among the people of Israel, both man and animal. And they are to recall how God could make a distinction and how he passed over their houses if they had the blood applied as specified. So this is to be a reminder to them of God's judgment. It's to be a reminder to them of God's love and how he kept his promises, of God's mercy, of God's grace. They didn't deserve it. Applying blood on a certain place did not make them deserving, did not automatically remove everything that they had done in the past, but God graciously gave them life if they would do it. And I was looking, it seemed odd to me when he makes a statement here about the donkey. There's other livestock. He's not ignoring those. Every animal, every human, the firstborn, specifically he gives the firstborn male, he talks about it, is to be dedicated to the Lord, consecrated, set apart. It belongs to him. It is not to be used. That person, that individual is not to be used or to live a life just for common purposes, but a life that is set apart for the Lord's use, the Lord's service. And if they do that, to be able to do that, they must be redeemed. There is a price that they must pay for that. And there were offerings and sacrifices to be made. But what I thought was really strange, starting in verse 13, every firstborn of a donkey you shall redeem with a lamb, or if you will not redeem it, you shall break its neck. They weren't to do this with other animals, but the donkey. And I couldn't help but wonder why. The donkey, I found a variety of different possible reasons, in that there was an odor. One, pull my notes out here, that the donkey was not approved for sacrifices. God did not allow them to offer donkeys as sacrifices or offerings to him. Donkeys were pack animals. Not that they ran in a pack, but they were beasts of burdens, and they were used for carrying heavy loads, for doing farm work, even for an animal to ride on in some cases, if you were wealthy. Very important. Maybe a woman would ride on a donkey. But it's a lowly donkey, right? But it's part of everyday use. And some believe that this is God is providing them with future. The firstborn male is going to live. You can redeem it. Since the donkey serves so many purposes around their home and in their lives, that sometimes your wealth was measured by the number of donkeys you owned. And were working for you. So God is taking care of them in that case, and that may be why he makes a specific mention of a donkey. It would be highly valued, and so a donkey that has a offspring, that first offspring is going to be cherished and valued. It can reproduce going forward. And so there's a hope of future expectations with the donkey. Others have speculated that the reason for the donkey was there were other cultures that used the donkey and sacrificed for it or sacrificed to it. And God is making a distinction with the donkey in Israel. But the donkey's not by itself really any different from other animals, if you think about it. And yet it has a status from God. It was an unchanging status. They couldn't decide, or they weren't supposed to decide, that someday they would forego that. If a donkey had a male offspring, then they were to provide an offering in exchange to redeem it, or they were to break its neck. It was either to serve and remind them that the work around their house, the load that they were carrying, whatever it was dedicated to God. It was only possible because of the Lord. And there's a lot going on with him, with this donkey. But we don't have a lot more details about it. So this Feast of Unleavened Bread, the Passover, it was all, they were to do it to remember God's deliverance. They were to do it regularly. There was a specific time they were to do it. Was there a specific way? I think that evolved. Don't quote me on it, but it seemed that was something that they came up with on their own. I do know this was so vitally important that if you miss the Passover, which this is included with, if you miss the Passover, you were to be cut off from among the people. And you can read that over in Numbers. Let me see, I jotted it down somewhere here. I've got it on a piece of paper. If you've ever had to read my notes, you'd understand what I'm going. Numbers chapter 9. If you get a chance, read those first 13 verses that talk about the Passover, and really this unleavened bread that is tied in with it. There was only really one excuse for missing it. Well, two, excuse me. One was you were on a long journey and were not able to prepare. You couldn't command wherever you were staying to get rid of all of the leavening agents in their house. That wouldn't go too well. The other was that you were unclean because of a dead person. Otherwise, there was no excuse to fail to keep the Passover. And if you failed to keep it, you were to be cut off. We talked about that a little bit. It could mean that you were just removed from the community. But ultimately it meant you were to be killed. removal from the community and the societal interactions made you a victim for easy prey for other people. Whether it meant that they were just to take you out and to stone you then, I don't know. Let's move on. We'll real quickly. We find when Pharaoh let the people go, God did not lead them by the way of the Philistines, the way of the land of the Philistines, although that was near. For God said, lest the people change their minds when they see war and return to Egypt. But God led the people around by the way of the wilderness toward the Red Sea, and the people of Israel went up out of the land of Egypt equipped for battle. Where did they get the equipment for battle? We talked when they left. Some say that it is a military term, that they marched out. It's like a fighting force, and they regarded as the Lord's armies, his fighting force. Well, where did they get the things they needed to fight with? Did Egypt allow them to have armor and swords and spears and things of that nature while they were slaves? I highly doubt it. Remember, the Egyptians were afraid of them. There were things put in place because Egypt was afraid they would rise up against them. So I don't see Egypt, and by Egypt I mean Pharaoh and the people of Egypt, allowing them to have military equipment while they lived in the land. So where did they get it? Was this part of what they were plundered, of what they got when they plundered the Egyptians? Did the Egyptians give them these things? And I suspect that's the case. But we find something else. Moses, since he is there, he's leading them out. That Moses took the bones of Joseph with him. For Joseph had made the sons of Israel solemnly swear, saying, God will surely visit you, and you shall carry up my bones with you from here. And that is what happened. We can go back to Genesis chapter 50. As Joseph was speaking to his brothers and to other family members, in verse 25 of Genesis chapter 50, Joseph made the sons of Israel swear, saying, God will surely visit you, and you shall carry up my bones from here. So Joseph died, being 110 years old. They embalmed him, and he was put in a coffin in Egypt. So they take, I don't know that they just gathered the bones up, but they apparently took the coffin with them. Maybe they just did get the bones, but most likely they took his coffin and they took his bones out. He had told them many years before that this God would deliver them, and it's come to pass. And what they had promised, they had swore this to Joseph that they would do it, and it's not that same generation. We're not sure just how many generations later actually are fulfilling this instruction that God gave, that Joseph gave them. We find verses 21 and 22. The Lord went before them by day in a pillar of cloud to lead them along the way, and by night in a pillar of fire to give them light, that they might travel by day and by night. The pillar of cloud by day and the pillar of fire by night did not depart from before the people. God led them. He went before them to light the path. And if they were willing to do it, they could look from wherever they were. This huge crowd of people, they could look. They didn't just have to look at the person in front of them. Any single one of them could look and see that cloud, which was the Lord. And they could, because he went before them in a pillar of cloud. Any of them at night, if it was turning dark and maybe the skies had darkened, you could still see where you were supposed to go. That fire lit things up. And not just at the front. They could all see where to go. It reminds me that thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light to my path. I think that's the right way. So the Lord provided this for them. They didn't just stroll around wherever they wanted to go, hoping they would reach the right direction, the right destination. The Lord provided the means so they would know exactly where to go at any given time. We'll stop there. Our 30 minutes is up, but we're going to pick up, if Lord willing, we'll pick up in chapter 14, verse 1, some more instructions that the Lord gives to Moses on their travels. And we'll move a little bit faster. We're not going to look at every different location in detail, all of the stops, but we do need to look really up until about chapter 15, because that's where we get to the Red Sea. And they didn't just automatically get to the Red Sea. They had to walk. And while they were walking, God led them in the right way. I hope things are well with you. And if they are not, they can be. Jesus died so that you can have life and have an abundant life. Not necessarily with material possessions, but you can have a life that's well worth living. A life that is approved by God. Because it's a life that is hidden in His Son, Jesus Christ. And so I hope things are well with you. And if they are not, they can be. I know that wherever you are, you're facing struggles. That, unfortunately, is part of the human existence. But God can help us overcome. He can see us through those things. So until we get to meet again, may God bless you and keep you.